So this is the first full day and the first Dharma talk of this 4-day retreat here in the Franciscan Center in Tampa Bay. And this 4-day retreat is entitled Becoming Intimate with Life, Moment-to-Moment Mindfulness. And in the description that we sent out to all of you, it was written, intimacy with life implies closeness, inseparability, familiarity, and connection. The ability to be present and accountable with moment-to-moment unfolding of our life is a result of practicing mindfulness. The lack of mindfulness in life results in a distracted and unfocused mind that experiences itself disconnected and alone. The Buddha presented the practices of the 4 foundations of mindfulness as the basis for living a mindful life. During this retreat, we will meditate deeply on these 4 foundations and develop realistic strategies for incorporating them in our lives. Whether in relationship to our bodies and minds or the people and situations we encounter, the how, quote-unquote, how of entering life fully will be explored in the Dharma talks and meditation periods. Obstacles and challenges to living a mindful life will be dealt with. So that was the description. And this is the reality. Words are simply pointers, and they point to experience. So all the words about a so-called mindfulness retreat, they're talking about this. So if you're here in this, you are in the mindfulness retreat. Mindfulness. It's interesting, being someone familiar with mindfulness for many years, to experience and see that now in our culture, mindfulness is very current, right? Which is interesting. So mindful living, mindfulness in life is almost a buzzword. Everybody who's hip is practicing mindfulness. It's like, I think, other words like spiritual that really have lost meaning. That people just say it. So I'm not sure when people say they're practicing living mindfully or what that really means. So we'd have to ask them. But we know, again, mindfulness has entered the popular culture, and there is a sense that somehow mindfulness, mindful living is a good thing. As well as we know that the more formal practices of mindfulness have entered areas of mental health, physical and mental well-being. And there is a sense that mindfulness, or more formally mindfulness meditation, is good for one and good for many things. So it's interesting to know, and we'll be exploring, that the roots of mindfulness, and most people acknowledge that, the teachings and practices of mindfulness come out of the Buddhist tradition, that they really go back to the earliest and most fundamental teachings of the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. And those were some of his earliest teachings and practices that he assigned to his followers. So in this retreat, we will be exploring this fundamental text, the Satipatthana Sutra, the Foundations or Establishes of Mindfulness Sutra. There are various kinds of translations. But all this practices and ideas about mindfulness all go back to these earliest texts, the Satipatthana and the Anapanasati, which is Full Awareness of the Breath Sutra. I think that's interesting. That 2,600 years ago, a man can be talking to his disciples and giving them instruction in meditation in 2,600 years that has suffused, the culture in the world. So it's quite interesting. It is hard for us to always know what the effects are of our actions. So I will be teaching and commenting on this sutra because I think it's so germane. But actually, this little description is a little misleading because actually in this 4-day retreat, I'll primarily deal with the first 3 and save the 4th to the February retreat. And I'll explain why when we get into it. As you know, or many of you know, when something is called a sutra, which is a Sanskrit word, or sutta, which is the Pali word, these are words that are purported to be the actual living words of the Buddha himself. And most sutras, practically all of them begins with, thus I have heard, or I heard these words, which is kind of telling us that somebody actually heard the Buddha speaking these words. And usually the one who's often heard was his cousin Ananda, who became a disciple of him and basically had what we would call a photographic memory. He had an incredible memory. And since he was the Buddha's attendant for decades, he was able to, have very close connection with the Buddha, probably heard these teachings and talks many times, and after the Buddha's death and passing was able to recite them very clearly and got the official stamp from the assembly of senior disciples that this was an authentic teaching of the Buddha. Again, in the Buddhist meditative tradition, the practices of meditation involve mindfulness, concentration, insight. These are the 3 aspects, but mindfulness is the foundation. And as we will learn, it is not only the foundation for a meditative life, but it's the foundation for a good life, which is probably what most of us are seeking through the practice. So it begins, I heard these words of the Buddha one time when he was staying at Kamasadharma, a market town of the Kuru people, and the Buddha addressed the bhikkhu. So it's personal. Okay, he's talking. I mean, and it's people are just around him. There's no megaphones. There's no it's personal. He's a man with his students, talking to them, and he says to them, there is a most wonderful way to help living beings. In that sentence, you get the thrust. The Buddha was not a pedant, right? He wasn't teaching for the sake of teaching. He wasn't trying to impress anybody. He wanted to help living beings. And obviously that he begins there, he is expecting or encouraging or letting his students know that this is what this is about. We are here to help people. Living beings are people. We are living beings. That's important. In Buddhism, intention is key. Intention is not always seen. Intention is something in the mind, right? So I can do outwardly a kind act to somebody, but if my intention is to manipulate them in some way to get something back, or to manipulate them because there's something I want from them, or to hopefully everybody will notice what a kind, generous person I am. Therefore, the act itself may look like a good act, but the intention, we would say, is not. Right? And so, in Buddhism, we are not fooled by simple actions, because it is really the intentions which is fueling the unfolding. So, even though the action may appear good, behind it is something that is unhealthy. In the same way, we could say if somebody exercises, right? That looks good, doesn't it? But on the other hand, if they're exercised because they are very self-conscious about their body, and they're very concerned about how people perceive their body or how they want their body to be perceived, and it's all about that. And it's really not about just having a healthy body and taking good care of our body. So again, outwardly it may appear to be something good, but behind it, we would say, is an unhealthy intention. Something like that would just be reifying a delusion. So again, that's why in Buddhism we have said, please always check your intention before you undertake an activity, to make sure that it is pure, that it is healthy. In traditional Mahayana Buddhism, we would say that the best intention for any action is, may this action benefit people. Whether it is an action that is you're doing to just some individual, your wish only would be, this will benefit, this will help them, this will ease their suffering, or this will create some goodness in their life. But in generally, as you can see here, when it's not a specific action toward a specific person, but it's a general action, maybe that nobody can see, such as sitting down to meditate. Right? The first thing you would generate is, I am undertaking this action so it can bring a benefit to people. Right? And that is important to nourish that seed, because so somebody may come here and go, what are you guys doing here? Well, we're benefiting people. I don't see you benefiting people. All right? You're just sitting around, staring at your navel. You selfish, there are people who need help out there. How, you say you want to help people. How does this help people? Well, and you might say, well, but it's my intention that I'm doing this to help people. And they also may be disparaging of that. And that's because they don't understand that from seeds, things grow. And even though you may be in retreat, cultivating mindfulness, as we will soon learn, we are undertaking this so we will be more able to be of benefit to beings. Right. So, when you come across a physician, in first-year medical school, who are they helping? Nobody. Right? Just about them. But if their intention is at the end of their course of training, they will be able to help anybody. You see the relationship, right? So this is very important, that whatever we do, whatever kind of action we do, however it is big or small, that always we have this intention that this will be of benefit. In that way, immediately we are purifying the mind stream from its either its self-centeredness, right? In other words, may this benefit me, as well as its ensuring that the energy behind it is always open to discernment. Right? We are looking at our actions. and we're checking ourselves. There is a most wonderful way to help living beings. And now, help them in what way? He says to realize purification, overcome directly grief and sorrow, end pain and anxiety, travel the right path, and realize nirvana. This is the way, the four establishments of mindfulness. Okay? So this is very important. And please, before we... because again, the practices seem fairly mundane, right? Fairly simple. And yet you see the fruit is quite extraordinary, or as translated here, quite wonderful. Please, again, as I say these words, reflect on that in your own mind so you get it. Right? He's saying that these practices and the understanding the fruits that come for them will bring something marvelous. So again, you would have to ask yourself, do I want to have something marvelous in my life? There is a most wonderful way to help living beings realize purification. Now again, what are we purifying? We're purifying this, right? Mindfulness obviously has directly to do with the mind, right? What is the mind? That which is listening to me right now, this is your mind. It is not found anywhere else. Obviously, what is implied here is that sentient beings, people, their minds are not pure. Their minds are impure. They have to be purified. Right? What do they have to be purified of? All kinds of stuff. Emotional afflictions, wrong views, self-centeredness, all the sufferings and delusions that plague the mind. In the same way that we might say dirty water, that if it is put through a system of purification, right? All the impurities have been taken out, and now the water is good to drink. It is nourishing. Right? Many of us are not really capable of leading good lives and really being benefit of others. Why? Because of the impurities that are in our minds. Right? Even now, you might say to me, as you're listening, and if you're listening quite purely and openly right now, you might say, in this moment, my mind seems fairly pure, right? There are no impurities arising. And that may be true in this moment. But you know that as you go through your day, as you go through your life, you will be constantly surprised by all the stuff that arises. Where does it arise? In our minds. Where does it manifest? In our actions. Right? In the words we speak, in the activities of our body. Right? You drink impure food, and you get sick. Right? We have an impure mind, and we are sick. Emotional afflictions are a kind of illness. Right? Anger, fear, overwhelming sadness, self-centeredness, all these kinds of things, impatience. These are all impurities that cause us to be sick. Helps living beings realize purifications, overcome directly grief and sorrow. End pain and anxiety. please attend to this very carefully. If you suffer, I mean, grief and sorrow, pain and anxiety, he's talking about, are too common, our most favorite American emotional, right? I mean, if you add up all the people who are taking antidepressants, taking anti-anxiety medications, right, or have been, or should be, or would be, it's quite normal in our society that to experience on an ongoing basis grief and sorrow, pain and anxiety, right? So he's saying, overcome directly grief and sorrow and pain and anxiety. Travel the right path, right? Again, we won't go into it too much. I've talked about this many other times, how important it is to have a path in life. Everybody in here is walking a path in life. You just don't know it. But if you look at the activities of your life, if you look at the way you spend your time, if you opened up your your mind and looked into your thoughts all the time, it'd be very clear to you what your path is. Your path is is the path you walk in this life. Very few paths in this life lead to happiness in any meaningful way. Very few paths in these life lead to awakening, to really seeing clearly. Very few paths in these life actually lead to liberation from suffering. So when the Buddha says, travel the right path, he's implying that the right path is the path that liberates you from your suffering, from your delusions, from your ignorance, from all the things that bind you. Right? This is a right path. Many of us travel the path of binding. We're just constantly tying ourselves up. We're just mucking around in the muck. Right? Like the what do you call it? The tar baby. It's like as soon as we pull ourselves out of one melodrama crisis, all of a sudden we notice we've got ourselves stuck in another, and we pull that one out. You know what I mean? And it's that's the way it is. And we want to travel the right path in this life. And he says, finally, we want to realize nirvana. Nirvana is the cessation of suffering. So this is very important before we even begin to read and comment on the sutra. Everybody listening, do you want to travel the right path in this life? Maybe not. Do you want to realize nirvana? Maybe not. Or maybe abstractly you do. Sounds good. But you're really not enough to actually walk the walk, as they say. We're happy to talk the talk. So this is worth reflecting on deeply. To ponder the words of the Buddha. There is a most wonderful way to help living beings realize purification, overcome directly grief and sorrow, end pain and anxiety, travel the right path, and realize nirvana. Anybody have any questions about that? I mean, is this not clear? Yes.
The idea of pain.
Pain?
Pain, yeah. Mm-hmm. Get hit by a car. Mm-hmm. Can mindfulness help me?
So when the Buddha is talking about pain, he is not talking specifically that if you follow this path, you will never experience physical pain. Because obviously having a body, physical pain is part of the body. It's part of the response system of the body. We have physical pain when? When our body is hurt. Pain is a way of the body tells us there's a part of me that's in trouble. It needs some attention. If you got hit by a car and didn't feel any pain, and picked yourself up or something, and you could get yourself in big trouble. When a part of your body is in pain, that part of your body is giving you a message: help me, I'm suffering. So there's nothing wrong with pain, in terms of that. What we're talking about here is emotional pain, mental pain. That is something very different. And oftentimes we do not distinguish the two. Right. So we may have physical pain, but the whole mind state that we create around that physical pain, the stories we tell ourselves, the emotions of frustration, anger, sadness, all these kinds of things, that's the kind of pain he's talking about. Okay, so that's important to understand. This is not promising us that life will be pain-free of those things in life that are just obviously painful. But it will free us from all the extras that we are endlessly adding on to life through our own distortions. As you know, and we'll be getting into that, right? Since we'll might as well begin. When we talk about mindfulness of the body, when you are mindful of your body, you will be aware that there may be parts of your body that are in pain. That's all your body is telling you, isn't it? It is giving us sensations that are different from normal sensations, right? That's all that is going on. Everything else is our story about it, and the emotions we create around the reality that our body is telling us that it is uncomfortable, right? In distress. Such as, Tim, if you're with somebody who is suffering, right? Your job is to what? If you can, yeah. Right, that's all. Very simple, isn't it? Yes.
In your mind you were thinking about anger or depression. How can you transform it?
Okay. What is your name?
Barb.
Barb, that's right, Barb. Let's slow it down, okay? That's a good question, and that's not that we don't want to deal with it. But today we're going to deal with the body, and because we need a ground, right?
I'm like feeling it in my body.
I understand. And we will deal today about how to feel that in your body. Mindfulness is a different way of dealing with that. But it's about dealing with that without the stories. So we will deal with that. Okay. And if by the end of retreat, if I haven't dealt with it, nail me, okay, then. So I'm not getting out of it, okay? So, realize purification, overcome directly grief and sorrow, end pain and anxiety, travel the right path, and realize nirvana. This way is the 4 establishments of mindfulness. And then it is said, the Buddha says, what are these 4 establishments? Number 1. Practitioner remains established in the observation of the body in the body, diligent, clear understanding, mindful, having abandoned every craving, every distaste for this life. This is what we will focus on today. Okay, but the second one, just for anticipation, is the observation of the feelings in the feelings. Third is observation of the mind in the mind. And fourth is observation of the objects of mind in the objects of mind. So those are the four foundations. Okay? And again, as we say, becoming intimate in life, this is life, right? There is our body, and of course within our body are all our sense organs, right? Did you know that? Your mind thinks it owns your sense organs, but actually your sense organs are part of your body. So we need to, praise that which needs to be praised. Okay, are we clear? Our eyes are part of our body. Our ears are part of our body. Our nose is part of our body. Our taste, our mouth is part of our body. Our skin and what we feel, these are all parts of our body. This is the life of the body. The body isn't just some inert thing. It sees. Is that clear? It has the capacity of seeing and hearing and tasting, all that. And feeling. That's all within the body. The mind just kind of listens in on that. So we will begin today with mindfulness of the body, both in the teachings that I'll be giving you this morning, as well as in the meditations and your practice throughout the day. Okay, so we're going... and again, this is very important, and I think there's a great wisdom in how the Buddha presented this. Because I think the body, because of its physicalness, is much easier for us to access, to be present to, than thoughts, feelings, perceptions, which are a whole different, they're of the mind. And that's a whole different ball game. But the body is, we can see the body, we can feel the body, we can touch the body. It is it's much more accessible to being present to and to being investigated. As well as we said yesterday, there is no drama in the body. The body is very straightforward. Right? When it's in pain, it's in pain. It doesn't complain. It doesn't whine. It doesn't say how come. It doesn't blame. It just goes, ouch! Right? It's very simple, the body. When it looks, it just sees. When it hears, it just hears. When it smells, it just smells. When it tastes, it just tastes. Right? When it feels, it just feels. When it's hot, it's hot. When it's cold, it's cold. Highly intelligent, this body. Great wisdom in this body. But because we are so, we have left our bodies, and we wander like ghosts, hungry ghosts, in the realms of our mind. Many of us have lost this capacity of understanding the deep wisdom inherent in our bodies. So is that clear? So, the first step is to come back and notice our bodies. And to work out from there. Is that clear, Barb? See, it's much harder to work from all this. Right, so let's just put this for now aside, and let's go back to basics. Oh, body. Oh, what a relief. right? Because when Barb goes up here, she goes, ah, help me. Right, you know, it's like this is overwhelming, or where do you start, or does it ever end, or right, all that. But it's like, oh, breathing. Oh, I can get that. You know, my foot touching the earth. I can get that. Yeah. So let's start with the stuff that we can get, and get grounded in that, and then we can move into the more abstract realms of experience. So, in the first section of this discourse by the Buddha, and as anybody knows, there tends to be a lot of repetition. And oftentimes you read these things and you go, the publishers must have really screwed up. They keep printing the same paragraph over and over. You know, we think it's, but and maybe that is true. But we know again, and we're not sure. You know, because we don't have a recording of the Buddha. So we don't know if actually repetition was a teaching device, but we know it is a memorizing device. And because for hundreds of years, some say 200, some say 400, but we know for hundreds of years the Buddha's teaching was passed on orally before it was written down. So obviously, kind of a lot of repetition was very helpful in memorization. But one thing I wanted to comment on before we get into that is in each of these four, where he mentions about the practice, observation of the body, the feelings, and the feely, he then says for each of them, he says the same thing. So for the body, a practitioner remains established in the observation of the body in the body, diligent, with clear understanding, mindful, having abandoned every craving and every distaste for this life. He is telling us how to practice. Before he gives us the practice, he tells us how to practice. If we want, again, purification, overcome grief and sorrow, and pain and anxiety, travel the right path and realize nirvana, right? We have to practice. We have to do something. It doesn't come to us, right? So he's now, in his introduction, before he gives us the exercises, the meditations to do, he's telling us how to practice them. So since this is a practice retreat, please pay attention. Okay? He says, diligent. Diligent means what? If we are diligent, we are working at it. We are committed. We keep at it. We are diligent, right? We're not half-hearted. We don't do it for a few minutes and then do something else for 20 minutes and then come back and remember I'm doing it for 1 minute and then go off, right? That's not diligent, is it? Diligent, there's a consistency in diligence. There's an attention in diligence. There's a focus in being diligent. So, unfortunately, for those of us who would rather, get it in an easier way, he's saying you have to be diligent. Again, diligent, for those of you who are perfectionists, does not mean you have to be perfect. You have to be diligent. It's very different. The emphasis on the consistency and the dedication and the commitment of my effort. Is that clear? It means even if the effort in the short run is not giving you the results that you think you should have. The emphasis is not on the result, is it? The emphasis is on the diligence. He's telling us if you do this, this, and this, you'll get this. Don't worry about this. But we're all worried about this. Right? And we don't notice this. Is that clear? He's saying, notice this. Right? Right? If you want to end up with something that tastes good, follow the recipe. There may be people in here who don't believe that. Right? Who says, I can do it my way. Maybe add a little more here, right, a little more there, don't take that out. And you end up with something that doesn't taste right or has a very strange consistency. Right? Why is that? Follow the recipe. When you become a master cook, you can do it your way. But in the beginning, follow the recipe. Be diligent. Clear understanding. I understand what I'm doing. Right? Okay, I know what I'm doing here. I understand the practice. I understand why to do the practice. I'm understanding, I understand the whole deal. Is that clear? So, for those of you who thinks it's just about jumping in, and you wonder by jumping in, why I don't seem to be getting anywhere, it's because, and why I'm not diligent, because we often don't have clear understanding. Clear understanding of this life, and why I'm practicing, and how to do the practice, and what will be the results of the practice if I follow it a certain way, all that. Is that clear? Clear understanding. Mindful. I have to be present. My mind has to be fully engaged. And then having abandoned every craving and every distaste for this life. Now that's a tall order. But he's pointing us in, I think, in a very meaningful direction. He's talking about what? In Buddhism, he's talking about what we call equanimity. He's not talking about some kind of soulless kind of detachment. Right? When we sit and when we practice, our mind is often disturbed by what? By thoughts that we like, by things that we like to think about, plan about, etc., ruminate about, or else by a lot of aversive stuff that bring up a lot of aversive kind of negative emotions. That is because our minds, even though we're sitting in meditation, are still being controlled by our habitual way of, wanting some things, getting our kicks out of something. Some of us love to what? We love to plan. Oh, there's nothing we like better than just thinking about the future and planning all the things and actually visualizing ourselves doing it. Some people not only go that far, but then they'll think of all the things that could come up, and then they start worrying, it's like, we just love that stuff. Right? Some people just love to ruminate the past. Some people love to ruminate about all the good things and all fun things, and some people like to ruminate about all the miserable things and all the terrible things that happen to them. Some people like to just think about all the terrible things that are happening to everybody they know in life, and It just goes on and on and on. There's no equanimity in that. Right. We have to understand that we are still craving, wanting something, or we're still averting, not wanting something. And that will disturb our minds. And if our minds are disturbed, right, we cannot settle into mindful, diligent meditation, can we? So we need to watch these movements of our mind. We'll get into that, in a couple of days, why it keeps going in certain directions. What disturbs my meditation? Right? What's my mind up to? And we will see it is because I'm still very attached. And that's the truth. So, it is very important that when we sit down to meditation and we or come to retreat, I suggested that we kind of just let it all go, right? Let the past, let the future, let the dramas, let it all go. The work, the family, just let it all go. For 4 days. And also when we sit down in meditation, sit down in equanimity, right? I'm not seeking anything. I'm not trying to avert anything. For this next 30 minutes, I am just present. I am not picking and choosing, as it said in our verses on the faith mind this morning. He or she remains established in the observation of the body, in the body, diligent, with clear understanding, mindful, having abandoned every craving and every distaste for this life. So is that clear? Those are our meditation in how to approach the meditation. So please make sure that you are cultivating diligence, that you have clear understanding of the practice, that you are mindful, and that you are cultivating this equanimous mind. It doesn't seek anything, is not repulsed by anything. That is the mind that is capable then of really putting itself into the process at hand. No drama, no melodrama. No past, no future. What's left? This. And it is this moment in the body, in the feelings, in the mind that we are exploring in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So we got to kind of put that all down so we can just do that work. Right? So we can focus. Right? If you go to work and all that's on your mind is your personal drama at home, it's going to affect your work. Right? Right? If you're a supervisor and you got an employer like that, you send them to the EAP program. Right? Their personal dramas are getting interfered with their, you know what I mean? They can't concentrate. Right? They can't focus. They're on the phone all the time, talking to this one and that one, right? Not very productive employee, right? That's the way we are. We're all like on the phone inside our mind, talking to this one and that one. We're not very productive in our meditation, right? So, the same way, a good employee, a good worker, if any of us are good employees, good workers, and whatever our craft or job is, we know it is because we are what? Present, focused, 100% there. Right? So this is no different. All right, now let's get into it. Good. Let me just say that I am reading, this is a book of commentaries by Thich Nhat Hanh on this sutra, and I am reading, in the beginning there is a translation of the sutra that was done by Thich Nhat Hanh and Annabelle Laity. from the Pali. They translated it from the Pali. Even though in the beginning it says that of the book that this was translated from the Vietnamese, so maybe they translated it from the Pali into the Vietnamese, and then I'm not quite sure, or maybe it's the commentaries that were first given in Vietnamese. So anyhow, so how do you practice? It says you go to the forest or to the foot of a tree or to an empty room. You sit down cross-legged in the lotus posture, hold your body straight, and establish mindfulness in front of yourself. I like that. Please remember that. The first thing you do is you take your seat, you take the posture stable and upright, and then you establish mindfulness in front of you. Your eyes are open. You're present. You bring yourself into just mindfulness in general. Is that clear? That's what he says. You establish mindfulness in front of you. If you cannot see what's in front of you, if you're not looking at what's in front of you, and if you cannot look at it without any kind of judgment, you're just looking. You're just present. Establish yourself in mindfulness in front of you, the Buddha says. Then you breathe in, aware that you're breathing out. Breathe out, aware that you're breathing out. When he or she breathes in a long breath, they know, I am breathing in a long breath. When breathing out a long breath, I am breathing out a long breath. Breathing a short breath, I am breathing in a short breath. A short breath out, I am breathing out a short breath. Okay, so you see he begins with the breath. It's the first anchor. And it's what? You're noticing that you're breathing, and he's using the exercise of just noticing whether your breath is long or short. Right? Whether your in-breath is long, whether your out-breath is long, whether your in-breath is short, whether your out-breath is short, as a way of getting us to attend to our breath. Okay? It's an exercise. It's a meditation exercise. Right? Like we did counting this morning, these are exercises. So the Buddha begins with mindfulness of the breath. Again, some people may be surprised to hear my next statement, but you are not breathing. Your body is breathing. Is that clear? If you say, I am breathing, that is not true. Your body is breathing. You don't have a clue how to breathe. I just want to humble us a little bit. Notice breathing, nose, lungs, abdomen, that's all, our body's doing that. Right? And it's been doing it since we first entered this world of air. Is that clear? So we are finally noticing that our body is breathing. It breathes in and out. It doesn't know it's breathing in and out. Those are words we say. It just does whatever it does. It doesn't know about in-breath and out-breath, long breath and short breath. These are just little devices we use to notice. Okay. Oh, is that clear? So the first thing we notice is our body is breathing. Long, short, short, long, 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 short, short. Okay. And so there are these various exercises that we do to begin to become mindful, to develop this capacity of being present, we begin with something as intimate and essential to life as our body breathing. We cannot live without breathing, can we? So it's important, to notice that. We could live without drama, but we can't live without breathing. Is that clear? So if I asked us, which is more important in the hierarchy of life? We would say, so let us attend to that which is essential. Okay. So these are, again, breath exercises, breathing in, breathing out, long breath, short breath, counting the breath, breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Well, these are all variations on a theme. The theme is becoming mindful of the breath. Is that clear? Okay. Then the Buddha moves on. Breathing in, I am aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I am aware of my whole body. So again, this is very interesting because many of us have a relationship with our body which is more about parts, right? So Tim may say, you have a part of your body that's in pain? Oh, when you were talking about pain earlier, that was just a generic question. There's no part of your body. Again, usually we attend to parts of our body, we check them out because we want to what? Because they're in pain, or we notice they're tight or something, but our approach to our body is piecemeal. Right? Or even our breath is just noticing one part of our body. But his second one is breathing in, I am aware of my whole body. This is something we never do. This is an awareness of body. And remember, he said in the beginning, in the body. Many people have an awareness of their body as that which they see in the mirror. Right? That is not awareness of the body in the body. That is awareness of the body outside the body. Right? It's a very different experience. And even then, Nancy was just pointing to her head, I would imagine she was aware of that even that when we look at our body outside our body, it is an object, it's an external object that we have all kinds of thoughts, judgments, comparisons endlessly about. Yesterday morning, I was in Publix buying something before I came here, and as I was waiting online, in front of me were magazines. Women do not take this personally, but I couldn't help but notice that most of them were geared toward women, right? And you know what? I mean, it was amazing coming to this retreat on awareness of the body. I mean, it was like, there were about 3 or 4. They were all right next to each other. They all had different titles. I forget what they said. But they all had a very attractive young women, and it would be like, flatten your abs and, get the butt you always wanted. You know what I mean? What issue was that? But it was really quite amazing that and again you'll see as we go into the sutra there are meditations on the body, but it's a very different thing than the way this was meditating on the body. I mean, this was really talking about and the parts of the body, but all about in a very anyhow. I think you understand. Yeah. So most people, when they are aware of their whole body, they're aware of it as an object that they see in the mirror that either they're trying to shape to some idea about what they think will be desirable or pleasurable or attractive, or they're gearing it toward what they think other people want. Everybody know what I'm talking about? I'm not talking about that. The Buddha is talking about a totally different experience. Right. And we talked about intimacy. Awareness of the body in the body. So can everybody just come into their body? Just close your eyes a second. You know that body you see in the mirror. And then the thoughts and feelings you might have about that. But I want you to do something different. I want you to come into your body, which means you come down below your head, down your neck, into your trunk, your arms, your fingers, your pelvic, your bottom, your thighs, your knees, your calves, your fingers, your toes, your hands, feet, and feel it from the inside, not as a form that you see, but as something that you are just feeling. And first, you kind of go through it the way I said, and then see if you can just hold the kind of generalized awareness of just being in your body. Awareness of the body in the body. And not just as parts, but kind of a whole thing. And just so you kind of travel through it till you kind of get it, and then just kind of feel what that's like over time as you stay in your body in awareness. Has anybody been able to do that? Yes.
You can feel your whole body in your body.
Mm-hmm.
How do you look at that and stay grounded?
That is your ground. There's no such thing called staying grounded. When you're in your body, right? That's the ground. Remember, that's the four foundations, or the four establishments of mindfulness. What he is telling us is, this is where to establish yourself.
But if you feel the whole body,
mm-hmm.
your feet, your legs, everything.
From the inside.
From the inside, and you feel the energy of your body.
Mm-hmm. There's a kind of an energetic quality to it, yeah.
And there's an expansiveness to it. As if your body's still there, but it's, I guess that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, Evelyn, you've noticed that your experience of the body in the body is radically different than the way it looks, right? When you look at your body in the mirror, it looks what? It's got this kind of strange little form. It's got this little thing up top, and then it's got these things coming out, and this thing in the middle, and then there are these long things coming down, and right? It's kind of this weird looking thing. Some people find that attractive, but it is kind of weird, right? And it looks solid, right? We see this thing and it looks like solid, right? There's a solid thing. And yet when you go inside it as an experience, as the way you really experience your body, it's very different, isn't it? Yeah. And the mind, and when we get into the mind and feeling, it's the same way. Yeah. That's what becoming intimate means. To really know it as it is. Not as we think it is, or not as it appears outside. So yeah, that's the ground. It is diffuse. It is energetic. And if you maintain that awareness, it's a good place to move around the world from. As opposed to moving around the world from this body, which is an image and an object. Something that we think is solid. It's not solid, right? I mean, are there anybody in here ever attend an autopsy? Yeah, I mean, are bodies solid? Or are they made up of parts? They're made up of parts. And those parts are, I mean, the bones are hard, but even they, but I mean, a lot of things are squishy, right? Yeah. It's not as it appears. I mean, the skin makes it think like what? There's a solid thing here, but it's not solid at all, is it? Just a bunch of parts, right? I mean, you take the skin off, they start falling out. Right? I mean, that's the way it is, isn't it? Right? I mean, thank God we have this skin. It kind of keeps it all in. Yeah. So, yeah. So this is, again, these are profound practices. To really experience the body in the body as how you experience it, it will take you on a very different journey than you've always thought when you see your body as this object you see in the mirror. Yes.
I experienced the awareness of the body in the body just now, but I couldn't help but wonder what it was that was aware.
Well, we're not going there yet. That is a good question. But what you will notice, since I know you have this propensity toward these kinds of things, that, you know, and again, one of the things that the Buddha does in his teaching, he really wants us to understand the nature of things. And what we will understand is our bodies are not about, what is it, flat abs. What do people want? I mean, they want flat abs, or this is the ab? What, yeah, they want flat abs. What else do they want? Thigh. What kind of tight butt? Flat abs and what kind of thighs?
Shapely thighs.
Shapely thighs. Okay. So, good. So this is not about that, right? What you will notice in your body is it is not solid. It is made up of parts. It is the feeling is very spacious and open, and it's hard to say where inside and outside begin and end, and there is no self at all in the body. And so it is just a reaffirmation that there's nothing there in any permanent intrinsic sense. So he says, breathing in, I am aware of my whole body. So when we do these today, does everybody understand what we're doing? You're entering your body in your body. You're letting go of all your notions and ideas about your body and your parts of your body, and this is my brain, and this is my stomach, and this is my this, and this is, and these are my thighs, and these are my abs, and you know, and you're just, and it's solid, and you know, it looks like this. What does it feel like? What's your experience of your body when you're really in it, and in it in awareness? So this is, you know, there should be a lot of curiosity. Okay. Breathing in, I'm aware of my body. And then he says, breathing in, I calm the activities of my body. Breathing out, I calm the activities of my body. Okay. So now we are, I think because the Buddha began with saying, we're undertaking this to help, to benefit beings. When we enter our body and we become aware of our body, we want to bring a sense of well-being into our body, right? So the Buddha says, after you have entered the body and the body, then breathing in and out, you calm the activities of your body, right? Because we know, again, this is the foundation of the meditative tradition, right? And to be able to develop oneself through the practice of any type of meditation, one needs a calm body and mind, right? If it's agitated, it's very difficult to concentrate, right? So we are both here and when we get to the mind and feelings and all that. There is at this stage this wanting, this knowing how to calm. Right? Barb over there is going, but I want to calm my mind. I mean, come on, let's get. But we need first to learn how to calm our bodies. And as you know, feelings are in the body often. So learning to be present to our body and learning how to calm the activities of our body. Right? So there's a sense of well-being. Any questions about this? Because this is what I want us to do for the rest of the day. There are things about the body that we'll do tonight, which are more looking into kind of how it's composed. But let me just read a few other things, because I really want us to focus today on our bodies. So the practitioner observes the inside of the body, observes the outside of the body, observes the inside and the outside, observes the process of coming to be, the process of dissolution in the body, mindful of the fact there is a body here. Until understanding and full awareness come about, he or she maintains the observation, free, not caught up in any worldly consideration. So as we observe our bodies, from the inside, from the outside, from the inside and from the outside, we will notice many things, right? We will notice what? How it feels changes. Constantly changing. It is not a permanent thing. If we reflect on our bodies, we will remember that our bodies at one time were this big. Right? And then they kind of grew. And then they start shrinking. And so we will also notice that this body is as it's referred to here, is in both a process of coming to be and a process of dissolution. Right. And when we talk about the body, we're talking about, a composite of parts. And we know that over time, all the parts of our body have grown. At one time they were very little, and then they kind of grew until they kind of reached their maximum, and then they stayed a while in their maximum, and then they started to, decompose. We call that what? We call that aging. We give it a name. The Buddha called it just dissolution. We like aging better. I mean, we don't go around talking about, oh, you're dissolving well these days. How are you dealing with dissolution? We like to talk about aging. We like the numerical, but that's not the truth. The truth is what? We are dissolving. Our parts are dissolutioning? What? I don't know what is dissolving, but what is falling apart? Yeah. Deteriorating. Right? How are you dealing with deterioration? I mean, that's really more accurate to say to each other. Right? But we don't like to, I mean, that's a beautiful thing about these teachings. They're just very simple, matter of fact, doesn't pretend that something else, right? So we want in this first and we'll get into it more tonight, but please understand that in this mindfulness of the body, it is not only this pure kind of mindfulness of that we're talking about, but it's also a mindfulness that sees deeply. Right? Thich Nhat Hanh sort of, in his mindfulness, he uses mindfulness both as the capacity to see things as they are in a sense of kind of full awareness, but also the capacity to see deeply, to be really mindful of what things really are. right? So we could say, looking in the mirror, I am mindful of this thing, that, I guess, which is called my body. But also, since we're not going to cut ourselves up in here, we're going to have to do it mentally. We can also use our mindfulness to investigate inside, where we really see clearly all the parts, where we can see clearly the coming to be and the dissolution, right? That is going on daily, moment to moment, as well as over time. And then the Buddha talks, he says, moreover, when a practitioner walks, they are aware they're walking. When they're standing, they're aware they're standing. When they're sitting, they're aware they're sitting. When they're lying down, they're aware that they're lying down. In whatever position the body happens to be, the practitioner is aware of the position of the body. Right? So if you wonder where mindful walking came from and all this, it's right. This is where it began. This is the practice of mindful living. Moreover, when the practitioner is going forward or backward, full awareness to his going forward or backward. He looks in front, looks behind, bends down, stands up, full awareness to what they're doing. When they put on their clothes, when they eat or drink, chews or savors food, applies full awareness to all this. When passing excrement or urinating, applies full awareness to this. When the practitioner walks, stands, lies down, sits, sleeps, wakes up, speaks or is silent, the practitioner shines their awareness on all this. So you're getting a sense of what the practice of awareness of the body is about. And it's both the inside and the outside and all the activities of. Are there any questions? Yes.
It's not a great question, it's more of a clarification, but when you first asked what this retreat was called, I really didn't know, because I never really pay attention to what it's called. I just come to see you and have a good time.
Glad.
Really,
Glad you're getting your money's worth.
As I listened to this wonderful Dharma talk, I would rename the retreat. I would say, going to pieces without falling apart.
I think that's the title of a book.
It is.
Oh. Okay, thank you. Yeah, or just acknowledging we're going to pieces. But again, when we come to terms with that, right, in this very intimate way, within our own body, and when we realize that that is happening to everybody's body, everybody, and to everything, trees, flowers, plants, I mean everything, one begins to understand through one's mindfulness reveals the truth of what's really going on here. When you understand the truth of the 5 remembrances, you're no longer disturbed by them. Because you understand it is normal. Sickness, old age, death, dissolution is normal. It's not abnormal. Everything, everyone participates in this coming into be and this dissolution. Every thought. What are thoughts? I mean, we haven't gotten to the mind, but what? Thoughts are what? All day long, what? Coming and going. Feelings coming and going. Emotions coming and going. Right? Endless. That's just the nature of things. How can I be present to this endless unfolding and be equanimous? Mindfulness is the beginning. Any more questions? Yes.
For the solitary practice, you mentioned many different ways to get into it, become aware of the body.
Yeah.
Just now, how would you suggest that we...
Well, again, Yeah, so that's good. Again, obviously, these are various. So the question is, just in the presentation this morning, there were probably half a dozen, if not a dozen, different exercises, primarily dealing with the breath as a kind of beginning place, but then really moving into the body and exploring the body from the inside, from the outside, when it's sitting, when it's moving. Right. Yeah. So that's it. Pick one, or pick two, and explore. Right. I mean, they're exercises. So, again, if you have time, it's like saying, I could tell you, but it's also like, it's like if you're practicing, an instrument or something, your teacher may give you various exercises. But you might find that some are easy and you kind of get them pretty quickly. But some you really got to keep repeating because you don't really get it. And so I'm presenting it to you to kind of say, just kind of begin by maybe spending a little time with each of them. But then you see which one really kind of gets you. Obviously, I think, the general mindfulness that he talks about walking and standing and sitting and lying down and standing up and chewing and eating and urinating and defecating. I mean, this speaks to what? Just the moment-to-moment mindfulness that we would already know about in terms of, mindful living, being present. I think the things that are that have been introduced that are perhaps new for us is this, being in the body and really as if you've never been there without any concepts at all. What is it like to be inside my body? What does it really feel like? This is no longer the body of thoughts. This is no longer the body of appearances. This is actually what it feels like. And I assure you, the experience of being in the body is radically different than we've ever thought it is, or as it appears. The teachings of inseparability, no inside, no outside, spaciousness and non-self and impermanence are all in the body. So that's why it is said that these teachings on foundations of mindfulness are not, as some people think, just kind of beginners, kind of like, beginner, and then we move on. They're profound. And they can be practiced quite deeply. So, yes.
I just want to share a comment why all of this has been real significant for me. I just recently went to a traveling exhibit, which is in Orlando, that's taken the human body and literally sliced it in all its different parts, and you can really see every little inch of the body. And I'm sitting here listening to all this stuff. I'm going, if anybody ever has a chance to see that, it's been profound. Yeah. Really now am inside, and I know what my bone looks like. I know what my heart looks like. I know what my liver looks like. And just to experience it in relation to that exhibit, but also to experience it in my practice has been very helpful. It's the kind of thing to see the whole human body in reality as a body. That's it.
Right. Exactly. That's a very powerful exhibit. Any other? Yes.
Earlier in the talk, you were talking about having dislike in the world.
You mean the Buddha said not having any aversion and all that's.
And what I'm wondering about is that only related to clinging, or are we not supposed to say, for breakfast I dislike porridge?
Well, hold on, we're not there yet, because what you're talking about is in the really we'll get into tomorrow, which is in the realm of feeling sensations, and then in the mind, because you're entering now the world of conditioning. right? How do you like porridge?
Not particularly.
Not particularly. Were you born with that dislike?
I ate it when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I changed my mind.
Bingo. Yeah, people grow up here in one culture and they'll eat something and think it's wonderful. That's all they know. That's what they're conditioned to. Yeah. So, we will look at our likes and dislikes in a very, again, intimate way. How they're all formed. This is what this is about. These foundations. But let's begin with the body today. Just again, if you find you have a dislike, is the dislike in the body? Yeah, which is interesting. Again, so we part of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the way they're divided up, is to really begin to see where the problem is, right? So to really, I have a body, and this is the realm of the body. So usually they're all together, and we can't really tell which is which. But as we're kind of segmenting out. This is the body, and this is a pure body experience. Mindfulness of body will reveal that. Oh, these are in the realm of feeling sensation, but this is the realm of perceptions and thought, and and this is the realm of emotions, and you know what I mean. So we can really. So that's what we're doing here. But the Buddha goes, let's begin with the body, and just see what's in the body. Okay. Yes, Nancy.
I think I heard something for the first time about establishing mindfulness in front of you when you sit. That's with the eyes.
Well, the eyes and just just bringing your awareness. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm just saying you establish yourself in mindfulness in front of you, which is something that you see. Again, it's not just only with the eyes. The eyes are one thing, but it's an attitude of the mind. But it's really saying before you do anything, establish yourself in mindfulness. And I think in front of you was just a convenient. I'm not. We don't know what he actually meant, but to me that means in front of you is if something's in front of me, I can see it. If something's behind me, I can't see it. So to establish mindfulness in front of me means I'm aware, that I am mindful, that I've entered the world of mindfulness. I am present. Okay. Before we begin, yes.
I just wanted to make a comment. I'm reflecting back to looking at the body within the body and feeling that static energy that's traveling through, that is not, it's separated from the body, that I feel like a ball of energy, and it's separate from the body, but I can't help, it takes my mind to massage.
Yeah, well, don't go there yet, okay? Because I want to stop you right where you said I'm feeling this kind of energy which is different than my body. You're saying different than your concept of what your body is. So I want you to get rid of that concept of your body and just, you're like an explorer. You've never been here before. You have no concepts. So you're just bringing your awareness, your mindfulness into your body, quote unquote, whatever this is, and you're just like a total innocent. This is what I'm experiencing. So don't have a reference point like, well, I'm experiencing this, but this is different than my body. We don't know what our body is. We've always thought it's that thing we see in the mirror. That thing that we hang clothes on. It may not be as it appears to us. But I want each of us to make up our own mind about what it's like to be in our body. Remember, we're calling this an intimate retreat, right? Close, personal. No longer knowing our body as an object from the outside, but as something from the inside. What is it? Mindfulness will reveal that. Good. So it is now just almost 10 after 12. Lunch is at... Oh, I didn't know. Yes. I'm sorry.
But going inside the body is coming to the realization that the body is deteriorating. Part after another, and one step all the way down the line. And what you're trying to teach us, and what I'm trying to learn from this, is that by going inside, this is what happens. And that's the way it is.
Right.
And nothing is permanent.
Right, but...
All impermanent.
Right.
And we're all going to dissolve.
We are already dissolving.
Right. I'm on the way.
Right. When you no longer know that, then you'll know it's over.
But what you're really teaching us is that by going inside, we know what we can learn about what's happening. And
well, there are two things that mindfulness of the body in the body is learning. Is the first thing is to experience your body, this thing you call your body, right? That you say is looks like this, and it's made up of this, and these are the parts that are changing, dissolving. But is that when you go in your body? What's your experience of it? I mean, like was just said, you go to the exhibit and you go, oh, that's the way a heart looks. Oh, that's the way a liver looks. Oh, that's the way a stomach looks. Right? But when you go in and you kind of feel that, does it feel the way it looks? See, what does your body actually feel like? It's your body. I mean, somebody over here goes, I feel energy, or I feel different. I don't feel this solid thing the way it appears, right? So we want to have an experience of just being in our body from the inside and what that feels like. That's number one, because that's important, right? Number two is also to see this other part that when we talk about in a physical sense, what are the characteristics of this body? And we would see, like you said, it is just made up of parts that came into being from birth and grew, and then that, and now they're all in the parts of dissolving, and that's, that's true too. They're both true. But we want to look in and see, what is my real experience of a body? And if it really, if there is something in it that is, there are the parts, but there's obviously something else in there, right? Because we know that at death, if you've ever seen a dead body, it still looks like the person you knew. But something has left. What is that that's left? And maybe whatever that is also present now in the body. And we can begin to understand that, experience that while we're alive. And maybe that may be an interesting thing to relate to at dying. But that's taken us off into whole other realms. Yes?
As I sit here, I'm aware, we're talking about one kind of entering the body, which I think I understand what you're asking us to go in and explore. And also I'm aware that if I pay attention to my leg on the chair, there's sensation in the skin, there's sensation that, feels like it has to do with the bone. And it also feels like it's an experience that is entered into, not observed. So, both ways. Yeah.
Again, that's why it's said, the Buddha says, so the question is about let me just answer it sort of. What Susan is just affirming is that, yes, the Buddha says, observing the body from the inside, observing the body from the outside, observing the body as it moves, as it sits, from the inside, from the outside. It's like, 360. It's kind of inside, outside, when it's sitting, when it's lying, when it's doing, when it's defecating, when it's this, looking deeply into it, see its parts. We'll get into that tonight. See its coming into being, see its dissolution. This is what it is. In certain ways, it is as it appears. In other ways, it is not at all like it appears. But it's both. And, like in the Heart Sutra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. The body is really very much in the world of form, right? And yet it is empty in this profound sense, and we can experience its emptiness. When we look in the mirror, it seems solid. But when we enter it in this mindfulness way, we experience it in a very different way. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Good. So it is now 12:15. Lunch will be in 15 minutes. So we have time to kind of have a little break and maybe do some outdoor walking meditation just to kind of absorb and return to, the practice. Walking, looking, eating, resting. So good. So we will end now.